Welcome to the Natural Living Development Podcast Show, where you will learn about natural building, natural living, and inspiring real estate developments from around the world. The goal of this podcast is to educate people that wish to make a difference with their investment and bring a positive change for the world. It's an opportunity to re-envision what real estate development should look like and how these developments should be funded. For more information about our natural living developments, please visit naturallivingdevelopments.com. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome again to another show. We are with Neal Collins with Latitude, a regenerative real estate company. Neal, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, how you got into regenerative real estate, and where the inspiration came from?
Yeah, thanks, Pablo. And I first want to put out there that regenerative real estate, for some, may really resonate. For others, it may bring up a feeling of a slight oxymoron of how can you operate within an industry like real estate that has historically been quite exploitative towards culture and land, and try to put that together with an amazing kind of thought technology that is regeneration. And I want to honor the light and the shadow side of that, and something that a mentor of ours named Aaron Fairchild, that runs a building company out of Seattle called Green Canopy Nodes. He talked about the arc of hypocrisy, and I find that if we're going to talk regeneration in the built environment, that we all fall on an arc of hypocrisy. So I just want to start our conversation with that, because I do give a lot of reverence towards what's come before and how we can be a part of a life-giving system. And so my backstory is really, I grew up and I faced a very critical decision going into what I thought would have been law school, but it catapulted me into living internationally, which was the Peace Corps. And I had 2.5 years to just kind of sit and think about what a community needs and how to integrate into a community, and how to see kind of the comings and goings, and how does ecology underpin this? How does economy underpin local communities? And I thought, this is it. I really wanted to work in international development, and that turned into conservation projects and heritage projects in India and the Maldives. And it wasn't until I was headed back to the States to go to Santa Barbara to get a PhD in environmental management that I had this revelatory experience listening to a podcast, which is why I love this medium, about real estate. And it really put a lot of dots together of, like, we spend a lot of time fundraising for projects from donors that we conceive of a great project, but by the time we got the money, the project would be so fundamentally different. I thought, they don't have that problem in real estate. It seems like that's the concentration of power and finance, and if we can just tap into that, then problem solved.
Yeah.
But getting into real estate is a really hard battle. I think that it's a hard industry whenever you don't have an experience in it, and you've got to really put your head down and grind, and then you've got to go out and find mentors. And I think you have to be very careful with the mentors that you find, because what we ended up doing was finding some people to look at. Some great, I really like them, but we ended up building out a very conventional single bottom line focused company out of Portland, Oregon. And it took the better part of a decade to wake up to realize that this is not what community development looks like. Mm-hmm. This is not what sustainability looks like. This is single bottom line conventional real estate looks like. And we got pretty good at telling people, we can help you buy your dream home or sell your house for the most amount of money in the least amount of time. But from a marketing perspective, 1.4 million other people in the United States have that same message. And I don't see much differentiation there. And so we took a really a lot of time to figure out who do we want to be? What is our role? And so we started to say, we love sustainability. We love the concept. We've got master's degrees in sustainable development. It's my wife, Alyssa, and I. And what does that look like in the built environment? And that's whenever we realized there's a lot of conversation at that time, 2019, around electrification and energy efficiency and smart tech. Smart tech is a pretty dubious category, if you ask me. But we started to realize, that these are all great things. We need this, but that conversation is already going. What do we really care about? We really care about our health and wellness. We really in community and ecology, and like, how do we help people understand how to make meaning in their lives? And that's a deeply spiritual aspect towards our work. That it's not just how do we successfully complete a transaction, but how do we help people really understand how they can be a nested system within their community that gives back. And so our work really is at the intersection between the reciprocity between people and place, so that we're not just the bad actors that are taking from the system, but how can everything, an individual as well as a house or a real estate project, make a positive impact in the community.
Yeah, that's really so many things to dig into that, but that's really well said. And I think that one thing that I want to chime into that, or at least ask a little bit more about. So obviously getting into having the background of sustainable development and your master's. And so what made you decide to go into real estate, like selling and listing instead of going into developing?
Whenever we first started in real estate, or what the first thing that caught my ear was, you can have passive income with real estate. Like you can have a rental, or you can do something of the sort that you're able to make money. And then a lot of real estate, they sell you on this concept of financial freedom. And whenever you're coming from the nonprofit world, where you're always kind of perpetually broke, you're always trying to find. I mean, it could. I don't want to generalize on the rest of the industry, but there's just people that do amazing work that didn't have that issue. But we were kind of new in our careers, really like that concept of, hey, we can go make money over here to free us up to go do the passion projects over there. Gotcha. And so it started off with, how do we learn how to go buy it first started off with a house that a lady was about to lose to tax foreclosure. And she was in an assisted living facility, but her mind was sharp. She was 60 years old, and she didn't want to go to tax foreclosure because they would have given her the remaining balance. They would have taken the back taxes she owed her and then given her the remaining balance, and she would have been kicked off her assisted living benefits. And so she ended up proposing to us, why don't you pay me for the next 30 years? I'll be 90. I just want to make sure that I get an income until I'm dead. Nice. And that's where a light bulb went off, and we started our careers of figuring out how do we take small projects like that, or small apartment buildings that have been kind of run down, and breathe some life into them. And we knew about sustainability, but at that point it was still this big question of, it's just going to cost more. So how does the economics work out? And since 2014 to 2022 that we're having this conversation, I think that it's really what we've witnessed and been a part of, and been lucky to have seen this through our organization now, is that we used to compromise the financial performance because of sustainability measures, whereas now I think we're really starting to see you're getting financial performance because of sustainability. And I keep using this term sustainability, but it's we really are not doing green real estate. We're not doing sustainable real estate. We're doing regenerative real estate. And so our path of evolution was really, we started off as owner operators and figuring out how to do that. And then we started to manage our own properties in the back end. And apparently the bar of entry for property management is quite low. But if you can figure out how to track money and how to essentially do what you say that you're going to do, other people started to take notice. And so we had other landlords saying, look, you seem to be doing a really good job. Why don't, I've got a property, a block away. What can you manage this property for me? And so that was probably the single worst decision of my career, maybe the single best. We ended up building out a property management company. And then whenever you do that, enough of them, they want to buy or they want to sell, and they come to you for representation. And so we started doing brokerage services, and then built that up to about a 20-person independent brokerage out of Portland.
Wow.
Property management company. And that's what I say, like, if you're out of alignment, for me, if I'm out of alignment, I can do that for so long before I will subconsciously start to undermine what we're doing. And that showed up in, I did not have the energy to provide the leadership to my team to build the kind of systems that would outlast me. So I realized that, this entrepreneurial Kool-Aid that everybody drinks, of like, if you start an organization, you just have to figure out how to replace yourself. If you're at all somewhat heartfelt, and you realize that organization that you built, that you put your name on, that's going to be your legacy, if you're not proud of the work that it's doing, then just don't do it. You don't need to replace yourself.
No. Yeah. Well, that's really well said. And it really brings a clear picture of how you started and where it led you. And so tell us a little bit, where are you at now? What are you focusing on now? What's the fire that's driving you?
The fire is just the good work that continues to exist, that will exist long beyond our lifetimes, that's for sure. So to pick up on that story, I think that's a good place of 2019. We had a lot of elders in our lives get cancer diagnoses. And it's pretty startling whenever the elders are not, they're not in their 80s or 90s, they're in their 60s, and they're healthy, and they've always ate well and exercised and done everything that one thinks that they need to do to live a healthy life. And so we started to have private conversations with experts, from doctors to building scientists to architects, to realize that, it's the air we're breathing and the food we're eating and the materials we're using to create our environments. And that is pretty startling. And I've got a young kid, and so I'm like learning these impactful statistics of like 52% of young kids below 17 are going to develop a chronic illness they're going to be dealing with for the rest of their lives. And then on the cancer side, one in two of us as males, we're going to get cancer, and it's marginally better for females. One in three people will develop cancer, and that has been a trend line from like about 100 years ago. It's 1 in 100, and then by the mid 1970s, it was roughly 1 in 20. So that woke us up to, we need to be having these conversations, but we need to be hitting record.
Yeah.
And that's what enabled, at that time, we didn't know what the name was going to be. We were still thinking we're going to be doing sustainable real estate. We wanted to put that out to our local city and local market. And I have always loved permaculture and ecological, like an ecological integration into how can we work with nature and not against it. And the tenets of permaculture, of like, it's a man-made system, but it's harnessing the latent, or the embedded power of nature. And so we said, is anybody else, Collin, anything, is there anything on the web about regenerative real estate? And there wasn't. So we said, that's a great idea for a podcast name. So we started the podcast and kind of fumbled through the first couple episodes, but started to hit our stride. And that message started to go out to people far beyond Oregon, to somebody in Hawaii and somebody in New York simultaneously. That was like, I'm in real estate as well, and what you're talking about really resonates with me. Like, I would love to figure out how to join. I thought, we work out of Portland. There's no way that we're going to be able to work out of New York. That's crazy. But we tinkered with our model to figure out, how do we work with really purpose-driven, mission-aligned professionals. And since 2019, our company Latitude has started to grow in such an amazing and new way that I haven't seen anybody else put these pieces together. Because real estate, you have a license and you're relegated to your own jurisdiction, typically state borders, and it's very hard and cost prohibitive to start to scale across state lines. But we joined with another brokerage that's international, that allows us to essentially create our own autonomous and consistent brand, to where we can start to put out much more content around regenerative real estate, and we can start to build out an ecosystem of aligned organizations and people. And I think this is the most critical, is that my role within our industry is not to be the expert. It's actually to be the first point of contact for people that I'm not selling. I don't need to sell our customers on the benefits of regenerative real estate or sustainability or whatever aspect it may be. Like, they come with that ethos hardcore. We are just enrolling them in the avenue, in the little corner of the industry that we're in, because then we need to go talk to the builders, the architects, the designers, the landscapers, the energy auditors, the politicians. Like, all this web of organizations really make up the work that we do, and we steer people in that direction. We don't have to create a new business model out of it. Like, we get paid whenever a sale is successfully completed, and so it's kind of like mashing the old with the new, and we've thrown a lot of spaghetti at the wall, and we're just really fortunate. some have stuck.
Yeah, no, I think that's a brilliant idea, and I do think that the movement is getting louder and it's getting stronger. People are understanding what it is to live in a sustainable home, a natural home, a home that can not release toxins and hurt them. And also, I know some of the listings you had, have gardens and have like self-sustainability as part of the compound, and also have community homes, so that you're not just, nobody just wants to live in their own house anymore. They want to live in community. So I think the listings that you have that are from all over the place are great. And I think it's definitely tapping into what the market is calling for. And I think more people may not know it yet, that this is something that is available. Same with natural building. When I was first getting into it, they didn't know that was a possibility. And now that they know, there's a lot more people wanting to know more about it and get into it. So I think what you're doing is great, and it's going to provide a lot of beautiful homes for many people to live in and to enjoy.
Yeah, natural building is particularly one of those areas that I think it has a lot of room to expand and to grow. And I mean, part of our mission is like, how do you expose people to these types of really wholesome, resonant, organic dwellings that are non-toxic, that do really work with our cellular biology as well. Because you look at the real estate building industry in and of itself, and we can put out a really energy efficient, high performance building that will kill you.
Yeah.
It is just straight up toxic. It's made out of materials that are terrible for the environment. And then it goes on to win a ton of architectural awards. And it's like,
and LEED platinum and all this.
Yeah, and I don't want to name any like certifications out there, but it just, what you realize is that a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to just step inside and be in a natural building. because it is a completely different experience. And
Mm-hmm.
you just start to let your whole central nervous system can kind of relax
Mm-hmm.
in that environment. And where I think some of the deepest work in that industry is right now is like the ability to trace back your supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
That's very hard to do whenever you're going picking up pallets and lumber at Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are truly adhering to natural building so that you're working with the natural resources of the site and of
Mm-hmm.
the bioregion, then that expression of form is just breathtaking and
Mm-hmm.
so enriching that it's almost like this ancient knowingness of within of like this
Mm-hmm.
is the type of structure that I think we should be living in. So hopefully we can help play a part in updating building codes across the country.
Yeah, and it's funny because we have been living in these buildings for thousands of years. It's only since 200 years ago so we started getting into more conventional building methods. And so it is like you said, when you walk into these natural buildings, there is an inherent feeling of like you're outside, but you're inside. You're protected from the elements with the elements. So I agree with you. So with that, how did you not too many people that I talked to know about natural building. So congratulations to you for the beautiful way that you've put it to elegantly explain it to people. But what was your experience with natural building? How did you find out about it?
How did I find out about it? Well, living in the Pacific Northwest, now let me go back even further than that. Whenever we were in India, we went into some pretty incredible dwellings that were built 1,000 years ago. That
Hmm.
they harvested rainwater, they used natural materials. It was quite passive design. We went out to the Kutch Desert, and like you see how they're living and using these natural resources to form their dwellings. So that makes an imprint. And
Hmm.
then from there, we were in the Maldives, and on the islands, they would build their houses out of the coralline reef structure.
Whoa.
Um, so another just really interesting way of like your immediate environment goes into your building stock.
Hmm.
And so then whenever we cut our teeth in the real estate industry, we're in Oregon, which is arguably a hot spot for natural building.
Hmm.
Particularly in a lot of southern Oregon places, you get an interesting climate there where it's dry and wet and very close areas. You can grow fodder really well. So we were tangentially exposed that way until we started to seek them out, seek out who are the natural builders,
Hmm.
and then you start to look at their threads of inspiration, and you find other natural builders, you find natural building schools,
Hmm.
um, you find the same kind of big philosophers that underpin the work. um, it introduced us to Aldo Leopold, and just you start to see the interesting lineages of this thought and of this form. um, and so there, we can really kind of geek out on a lot of the natural building influences, but it is one of those areas where I think we're at the very, very, very beginning. Like it is so
Hmm.
nascent, um, that the only place for it to go is up.
Yeah, I agree completely. Do you feel like in the near future there will be like more developments made from sustainable building practices, sustainable building, natural building techniques? Do you think that's a possibility, especially knowing that there has to be investors that are going to believe in it as well and will have to fund it?
Yeah, I do. And we see that right now, and it's showing up in the materials more so than the form, like the built form or the construction techniques. And I say that with a caveat. So let me give an example of this. I think hemp is an interesting product that is going to be more readily available because of its fire retardant or fire resistance.
Hmm.
And then once they figure out that hemp does that, and they realize that there's other natural building materials that do the same thing, uh, hopefully that'll really catalyze more building codes to encompass
Mm-hmm.
those building materials. We start to see like what are people really interested in. Like there's a lot of folks that are interested in like going modular,
Mm-hmm.
um, and for everybody that talks about their interest in modular, I understand it. I actually really like the concept, but I do want to just preface modular construction typically involves raising tens of millions of dollars to create a manufacturing warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And because this is a cyclical industry, what you're doing is you're creating a machine that you have to feed.
Yeah.
You have debt that supports that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the real estate industry is going to start dipping down at some point in the future, and it will happen, um, it's just you're revving up this engine. So that's kind of the shadow belly side of modularity, but
Mm-hmm.
it can create more pathways to incorporate different kinds of building techniques and different kind of building products. People follow like 3D printing, which I'm okay. I don't know where that's going, but that'll use different materials. Um, I just the 21st century, we are underscored by this problem of affordability.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot of different ideological thought processes of like supply side economics that if we just build it, then everything will get cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
and that works to an extent, but not. I mean, if you go anywhere in a major city on the West Coast, I can tell you that you're starting to see the cracks of that system. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, more developers are out there that are like positioning their compass to go in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everything for me comes back to financing. How is it going to get financed?
Right.
And that's probably the most like compelling challenge that I am personally, and I don't speak for the rest of the people within the company, but that I'm personally motivated to figure out
Mm-hmm.
how do we enable these amazing ideas and projects and give them the financial nourishment that they need to get off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have too many people that come to us with great ideas that it just the idea withers on the vine. And
Yeah.
anybody that wants to be a developer, and you go to a company like ours and you say, I've got this great idea, but I need help, raising the money, finding the team, and pulling it off. Well, you got to realize like you're one of 99 other people that week that are coming with the same similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need you to do everything, but I've got the idea. The ideas
Right.
are out there. The ideas are actually pretty cheap. Like
Mm-hmm.
you and I can iterate on some incredible community-oriented natural building ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, do we have the ability to pull it off right now?
Right. And I think that's the challenge that I'm noticing with the development that we're pursuing here in Nevada City is finding out which is the avenue to go to raise the funds. And one of the things that we're looking at right now is crowdfunding, um, and seeing if that's an avenue that could help. Because I do believe that there is enough people to be able to pull it off through crowdfunding, small donors, but it is going to take a lot of reaching out to them and finding a way to advertise to them and getting it in front of them so they can see this project and see it if they want to make it a reality and be part of something that's going to change the world.
Yeah, and so I've been chewing on this. There's a local project here on Whidbey Island that we've been sinking our teeth into this question that I hope you can find some commonalities here. And I think you can, because crowdfunding may be the wrong term. It's more like, how do you create community-based financing
Yeah,
for
exactly.
projects to where once people can make the mental shift that money is not necessarily an obstacle, in that like you might not have it and you got to go get it, and that's certainly an obstacle, but there is money out there and money always wants a return.
Mhm.
And so you can go to family offices, high net worth individuals, hedge funds is kind of a bad example for kind of the project scale that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to return. They have goo gobs of cash that they want to sink into projects for either equity or debt. But instead of going there, how can we first back up and say, let's focus on the community. Let's tell them about our project. Let's figure out ways to broadcast that message widely. And for everybody that hears that message, how can they also tell a couple other people, to where then you can say, we are doing this beneficial, purpose-driven project for our community. And if you have $100 or $1,000 or $100,000, why don't you invest it into this project? Here's the terms.
Right.
And we've seen it work in regenerative agriculture with a crowdfunding company called Steward. We haven't used them, but there seems to be a really cool platform called Small Change, developed by a lady named Eve Picker, that they do crowdfunding for transformational projects. And I think, like, even if you can first fundraise the 20% of the project locally, and then you can go out to investors that can put up larger chunks, that's a little bit more impersonal. They want to know what the return on investment and the IRR is, which essentially means when are they going to get their money back and how much more are they going to get back, or how much of the project are they going to get. Like, let's start using these things in combination, because I really think that the community has the potential. Like, we need to start strengthening our local communities. And if you look at, the materials are local, the building contractors are local, the residents are going to be local. Where the money comes from matters. That every single real estate transaction we do, if you follow the money, it typically goes, even if you're using a local bank, they're going to sell that mortgage off to somebody else. And you realize everybody is partaking in this huge debt economy, and the money gets congregated towards these like huge multinational conglomerates. Whereas if we can just switch that equation around, where it's like, we're not ever going to get away from money,
right?
Where in our lifetimes we'll never get out of a capitalistic society and economy. So how about we use money towards the transformation of local communities as well?
Yeah, I think that's really well said, and I agree with you 100%. All right, we're gonna wrap it up with some questions here. Let's start off with, what would you suggest to someone that wants to get into real estate?
Oh, that's that's a great question. I would say, really try to understand why you're motivated in that. Find the right mentors. Do a lot of research, and people are really willing to help other people out whenever they're first starting, and that's the most beneficial thing to me. It's just, always finding somebody that's willing to that's climb the ladder, that's willing to throw down the rope.
Yeah.
And I get that from a guy who's a mentor of mine named Tim Rode. He doesn't do regenerative real estate, but he's a real estate guy. And like, I love that mentality, and I've really used that to get where we are now.
Nice. All right. So what does sustainable building mean to you?
Oh my goodness. What does sustainable building mean to me? Let me take this in an interesting direction that I'm not sure if I'm going to completely answer your question, but I'm going to attempt. Right now, the conversation around sustainability and regeneration has been framed within the built environment by a rallying cry by this guy named Jason McLennan, that was the founder of the International Living Future Institute, that they put on the Living Building Challenge. And their tagline up until now has always been, sustainability is about doing less bad. So what does good look like? And they're kind of a front runner, or at least the most visible for regenerative design. in the built environment. And I'm not sure I totally agree with that premise. I think it's an easy mental model to move from sustainability, where a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for that term, and it got quite well used of like sustainability is where we don't compromise future generations, and
Mm-hmm.
people like to see it very linearly that, oh, sustainability is about maintaining homeostasis of where we are now. But how do you create a linear timeline whenever, if you go back to looking at time, like everything is multidimensional, and um, I can't put more words to it than to think that we've missed the importance and the underlying philosophy of what sustainability is if we're just going to do away with that term and we're going to go towards the newest shiny term, which is regenerative.
Mm-hmm.
So sustainable building to me hopefully encompasses, like I said, this package of regenerative and sustainability, where it is life-giving. And if we just focus on that within the building environment, what is life-giving for the inhabitants, for the species that we cohabitate with, and like where materials come from, and what's going to happen with them whenever we're gone, or the building no longer is able to be used for its intended purpose, then I think we're going to come close to fulfilling what sustainable actually means.
Nice. I like that. What does natural living mean to you?
Oh my goodness, I haven't put a lot of thought into natural living. Um, the closest thing that I can come up with, uh, really on the spot, is understanding how holism plays into our lives. That like natural living to some might be, the products that they're buying, but I've been getting influenced a lot by a mentor named Ross Chapin, who's a pocket neighborhood designer and architect. And he really talks a lot about this like earthly spiritual connection,
Mhm.
mind, body, spirit, and understanding that the individual pieces are part of a larger whole. And that to me really speaks out through natural living.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. That's really good. And that was a really awesome interview too with him.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that was really great. Okay, and then last question here. What do you feel is the best way to fund alternative real estate projects for aspiring developers?
Yeah, I mean, so what I put out there before, this community-based model, there's a couple chinks in that armor, in that you might need a following in order to go out and do that. I mean, you can hit the pavement. This is the first show that I've really put out that model of how might we do community-based financing. But I do think that having a track record is always going to be important in real estate. Like there's so many things that continuously to this day, I don't know that I don't know it. But there's a lot of things that I now know that I was really ignorant about whenever we started our career. So just having the ability to go be involved with other projects, if you want to create a profession out of it, is invaluable. And then if you're doing this more of an ad hoc type of deal, then find the right group of people, find the right consultants and the right builders, the right architects, and all that, and don't compromise, because that's like you're hiring them for a reason. Don't try to take your grand vision and then bring it to a production designer and a production builder, hoping that you're going to get something different, because you're not.
Yeah, I like that. It's well said. All right, and then I kind of have a couple questions for you that are outside of these, but so when you, in terms of financing your company, your business, when you were starting it, how did you do that? Did you start off with already with money in to invest in the company?
No, so there's a couple of different things. If we look at the real estate investing that we've done, I mentioned that first deal, and what was really impactful there is that we had to pay off this lady's back taxes for $10,000, and then we got
Mhm.
to put the rest on a promissory note, or you could call it a mortgage.
Yeah.
And the seller had the same protection that a bank had, and so that was pretty significant for us to be able to come up with $10,000, which was in savings, and it's a lot of money, but it's not an overwhelming amount of money.
Hmm.
And so we were able to kind of take that and incrementally eke up in the kinds of projects, and we started to find other people within our network that maybe they had a 401k or something like that, that uh, they come to you and they're like, look,
Hmm.
we really like what you're doing. Tell us more about it. And you can find avenues to help incorporate giving their funds a return,
Yeah.
and doing it in a way that um, is a big checkbox for them. Like they're not having to make this decision of like, let me go invest in some mutual fund, like some
Right.
growth stock mutual fund. That's so impersonal,
Hmm.
and that's a really good way. If the nice thing about real estate for everybody that's listening is that you can go out and you can raise money, and you can give somebody a secured instrument that if you can't pay them back, they have legal mechanisms to get either title to the property, or they can foreclose on you to get their money back.
Hmm.
Now you can over leverage a property and then you're in a world of trouble. But that's an amazing fluency within the financing world to give security, because where we are now with our company Latitude is that we've bootstrapped it to be able to get to a point where we're in 17 different markets across the US. But I want more visibility than that. Like we have people coming in across North America that want our services, and like that comes with, we hired a marketing consultant, and she came up with this brilliant plan. And the last page was like, here's the budget. Wow, this is like $22,000 of ad spend a month. That's a lot of money.
Oh my gosh, a month?
You're right,
Wow.
a month. And so now I'm in this position of I want to go out and I want to fundraise for the company to be able to. How do you get 18 months of that kind of a spend?
Yeah.
Um, but as a real estate guy, I'm going for the same tool that I've been using, which is, let me give you an interest return or a stake of equity in this property, and here's your deed of trust, to where it's like, oh, here's our idea. We think we're past proof of concept. Uh, and if it doesn't work out, then your money's gone, but we gave it a shot. So I'm working on that. We're still at that part of our careers where it's like, this seems like a huge hurdle, but I'm really excited to tackle that problem.
So do you think you're just tackling it one deal at a time, or are you trying to ramp up at a certain rate?
For us, so every organization I think is different. Like what really stands out about us is like we're figuring out how to do storytelling around property and place that captivates attention, and it doesn't hurt that the properties that we do end up marketing are extraordinarily beautiful and unique. And that does create a bit of a scroll stop on the phone or the computer or whatever it is.
Hmm.
But I will give credit to, so we're part marketing company, but the heartbeat of our company is our community. We have this community of passionate professionals that are all working in the real estate industry, and that gives us exponential influence, that we can go deep within individual communities, and then the brand can kind of work at a meta level supporting them. And so that's the most important aspect for me, is like we grow through our collective, and if they do well, then the brand does well. And I think that's the winning formula that we're going to continue to try to chip away at.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, and I enjoyed it tremendously, and I would highly recommend anyone that's listening to go check out his podcast show. You want to tell them how to get a hold of you, and also what your show is and how to find it?
Yeah, so people can tune into the Regenerative Real Estate podcast. That's a truly a passion project, and why I love coming on shows like this, because it's so fun to find new content as well. But our company is Latitude Regenerative Real Estate. We got a great Instagram feed that I get a lot of inspiration out of. We're getting a great new website here in March. That's going to be chooselatitude.com. And if you type in regenerative real estate, the cool thing is like all kind of arrows point back to what we're doing. And a key part of our story, and likely your story, is that no one person or one organization is able to do this alone. Like if we're going to have a regenerative future with that's natural living is embedded within it,
Mhm.
we need a lot of people. We need their brain power. We need their hearts. We need their dollars.
Mhm.
And so that's something that I really encourage a lot of people to do, is just figure out who's in your local environment, who are the builders, who's the real estate folks, and how do you continue to go find that next level of expertise, because it's now at a point where we no longer can just rely on kind of the transactional economy, that like we need to demand more from our representatives and our council.
Yeah. And for those who are in real estate right now, and let's say they have a regenerative real estate project that they would want to work with you with, how does that process work?
Yeah, it's a little bit clunky if they're outside of our immediate area in the communities that we're working in.
Mhm.
Um, but we're really leaning into that in 2022, of like how there is just so many people from all across the country that is doing incredible work, that I really feel like our platform, one of the potential things that exists, is how do we get more attention on that? Like how
Mhm.
can we use the visibility that we've built up to help them tap into doing community-based financing,
Mhm.
or leasing up a project, or selling a project, or bringing in the resources that we have within our organizational ecosystem? How do we give resources there? So I'm not going to claim that it is the most perfect, well thought out organizational system. Everything is a work in progress. I just know that for those people, like, we want to know about your project. And there's likely a way that we can help, at least bare minimum, put a spotlight on it. And
Mhm.
I think that's a job well done at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's wonderful. All right, Neil. Well, thank you very much again for spending this time with me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, Pablo, my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Natural Living Development Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Please help spread the word by sharing this podcast with your friends on social media, leaving us a review, and subscribing to the show. For more information about our natural living developments, please visit naturallivingdevelopments.com. If you want to learn more about natural building, join our intern or apprenticeship program, or if you're interested in building a natural building for your family, please visit naturallivingschool.com. See you next show.